Reflective practice in teaching or reflective teaching has become an increasingly popular concept. What is reflective practice in teaching? Why do we need to have to adopt reflective practice as an approach in teaching? And what is the general process of reflective practice in teaching? These are the questions that we will briefly respond to in this presentation. So, first, reflective practice in teaching. What it is? What is reflective practice in teaching? So, there are generally the traditional concept of teaching, and the traditional role of a teacher is that a teacher is someone who goes into the classroom with ready-made syllabus and teaching learning material and delivers that material in the class in the form of lecture without putting in much effort in thinking about the what, why, and how of the process of education, or the aims and objectives of education, or the role of the teacher in the process of education. Reflective teaching, on the other hand, is based on the philosophy that the teacher's role is not just to go into the classroom and deliver pre-planned or ready-made syllabus or content in the class. On the other hand, the teacher as a reflective practitioner is someone who thinks about the what, why, and how of the teaching learning process. So the reflective teacher is someone who thinks about what he or she is teaching. Also, why they are teaching what they are teaching. What is the aim of what they are teaching or the way they are teaching. And also the how of their teaching. So how are they teaching, or what methods of teaching they use in the class, and why are they delivering the lesson or their teaching in the way in which they are delivering it. So we can say that the reflective teacher, or the teacher as a reflective practitioner, is someone who thinks about what they are teaching, the aims and objectives of that, the short-term aims and the long-term goals of the content that they are teaching. They are also teaching about the why of it, and they are also teaching about their own teaching, their own role, or the way they teach, or the way they interact with students. So we can in general say that the reflective teacher is someone who continuously thinks about their teaching, or their role as teacher, and the role of the process of education as a whole. So we can shortly say that this is a kind of teacher who continuously thinks, and continuously thinks not just on the delivery of their lesson, but also about how to improve the process of education and the outcomes of education. Now, why is it important? Why reflective practice is important in teaching? So as we define reflective practice briefly, we can see that in the absence of reflective practice, the process of teaching and learning will become kind of routine, and it will become redundant. So the teachers will become just as deliverers of the curriculum, without thinking about the aims and objectives of the curriculum, without thinking about their role, without thinking about the the rights and responsibilities of the students, without thinking about the relationship between education and life itself. So that is why it is very important that the teacher needs to continuously think about the why of education, the why of the way they are teaching, the why of the syllabus or the curriculum, the why of the assessment processes, and the why of the whole educational process, the why of the role of the school, and the why of the different stakeholders who are involved in the process of education. So the question of why makes the teacher not just does not reduce the role of the teacher to just as a deliverer of the curriculum, but to an independent professional who is someone who continuously thinks about their roles and continuously thinks about improving the process of education. Now the how question, how is reflective practice enacted in teaching? So there are different ways in which the teacher as a reflective practitioner can actually enact the process of reflective teaching. And so here we will discuss some of the important ways in which the teacher can play their role as reflective practitioners. So there are two ways in which the teachers can reflect on their role as teachers, can reflect on the teaching, can reflect on the process of education, can reflect on the student's role, the student's learning, the assessment processes, and so on. The first one, we can consider the first one as individual or monologic reflection. Here, the teacher is doing things on their own without much involvement of others in the process of reflection, and that is why we can call this as individual or monologic reflection. So, for example, the teachers can keep reflective journals or diaries where they are noting their observations and their thinking, and so they are thinking on their own observations and in written form. So reflective diaries and journals, keeping regular diaries and journals where they note the problems they face in their teaching, the kind of practices that work, the kind of practices that do not work, the ways in which they can improve, and things like that. So the second one is critical reading. It is very important for teachers to just not confine themselves to their textbooks or to the notes that they prepare, but they should continuously read around the subjects that they are teaching, and not just read but also critical reading. Critical reading actually helps the teachers as reflective practitioners in improving their knowledge and their skills related to the particular subjects that they are teaching. So it is very important for reflective teachers to continuously read on a critical level. Then monologue or self-questioning. Reflective teachers should continuously be asking themselves about their roles. They should be asking about their methods of teaching. They should be asking about how they interact with their students, and what could be their potential impact on the students' learning, their behavior, and on the overall environment in the educational institutions in which they work. So monologue, self-talk, or self-questioning is very important as a reflective practice. And lastly, observations. The reflective teacher is someone who is a critical observer, who continuously observes the environment in which they are working, such as the classroom or outside the classroom. They are very keen observers, and they are very vigilant in terms of noting down the behavior of the students and the way the students interact with each other, and the way the students interact with teachers, and with the teacher themselves and with other teachers. Similarly, they should be very observant of how other colleagues who are working with them interact in the environment. And so these could be very useful for them in terms of developing their reflective thinking and improving their teaching. Then the collaborative or dialogic type of reflection is a reflection where there is involvement of other people in the reflective practice. And so these include discussions or dialogues with other colleagues, with students, with seniors, with educational administrators, and with parents as well. So with every stakeholder, these discussions or dialogues could be online and could also be face to face. Then action research is very important. Action research is a form of practitioner-based research where the practitioners, such as the teachers, do small-scale researches, practical researches on their own practices in order to understand the effectiveness of their practices and to improve practices. So data is collected on small scale through observations or through interviews or questionnaires, and then that is analyzed. And in the light of that data, they make changes and improvement. And so ultimately, this leads to improvement in the teaching learning process. So action research is another way in which teachers can do their reflective practices. Then reflective teachers should have critical friends who help them in assessing their teaching in terms of its effectiveness. Critical friends could generally be other colleagues, teachers who can come to their classrooms, observe their interaction with students, observe their teaching, and so they can give feedback on how to improve their teaching practice. And so this helps in the assessment of the teacher's teaching process, their teaching skills, their interaction with students, and so this can actually lead to overall improvement of the teaching learning process. And lastly, peer observation and review is very important. So this is something that is very linked to the idea of the critical friends in the school or in the school environment, where there could be formal systems of peer observation, which actually means that teachers actually work with each other in terms of observing each other's lessons, in terms of observing each other's work, interaction with students. And so this peer observation and peer review is also something that gives the opportunity to teachers to be reflective about their own teaching and to be reflective also about their peers and colleagues. So this can actually overall help in the process of improving, in the process of analyzing the teaching process, the teaching learning process, and help improving, coming up with solutions to problems, and so on. So these are some of the ways in which the idea of reflective practice could be enacted in practical terms.